So let me just be precise, and I asked for a yes or no answer. Did you ever terminate or discipline an FBI employee in whole or in part because they had been assigned or worked on an investigation of Donald Trump or January 6th?
FBI
yes or no?
employees are only terminated
Yes
if
or
they
no,
fail
Mr.
to
Patel?
uphold their oaths of
Yes or
office
no?
and duty.
You're not
at the
answering my
FBI
question.
I
You're
don't
not
have to
answering my
answer your question yes or no because you're setting up a trap so you can have a media
I'm not
narrative,
setting up a trap
and I'm not giving it to you.
Was that true, Mr. Patel? The question lands without decoration. No raised voice. No dramatic pause added for effect. It doesn't need any of that. The weight comes from what's being referenced, not how it's delivered. Adam Schiff doesn't look away from the witness table. His tone is steady, almost restrained, but the wording is exact. He isn't asking broadly. He isn't speculating. He's pointing to a specific moment, a specific statement, and asking for one thing only: confirmation. In 2024, you were asked who had Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book. You said it was under the direct control of the FBI director. A brief pause follows, not long, just enough to let the words settle. Was that true? Across from him, Patel shifts slightly in his seat. There's no immediate denial, no quick correction. Instead, he takes a route that feels familiar in hearings like this distance from the wording. I'll rely on you quoting it accurately. It sounds measured, controlled, but it doesn't answer the question. And that's the first signal. Because in exchanges like this, the absence of a direct answer often matters more than anything that follows. Schiff doesn't react emotionally. He doesn't interrupt. He simply narrows the focus. So what you represented to the public, was that accurate? Or were you not telling the truth? The phrasing tightens. The options reduce. It's no longer about interpretation. It's about credibility. Patel responds, but the structure of his answer shifts the ground. The Black Book was in the possession of the FBI, not under the director's control, not personally held, just in the possession of the agency. It's a subtle adjustment, easy to miss if you're not paying close attention, but Schiff notices immediately. Now that you're the FBI director, you have possession of it, correct? Another moment of stillness. That index has been released. The wording changes again. Not the Black Book. The index. A narrower term. A smaller claim. And now the discrepancy begins to take shape. Before holding office, a broader statement clear, assertive, and directed at the public. After gaining authority, a more limited explanation, carefully worded, technically defensible, but significantly less expansive. If you're watching closely and want to stay updated, hit the subscribe button and turn on notification. This is where the tension starts building, not through confrontation, but through contrast. Schiff doesn't rush. He doesn't raise his voice. Instead, he widens the lens just enough to increase pressure. During your confirmation, you made several commitments. You said there would be no politicization, no retaliatory actions within the FBI. He pauses briefly, then continues. Did you take any action to discipline or remove an FBI employee as retribution for their involvement in investigations related to Donald Trump or January 6th? The question is direct. No, Patel replies. Clear, immediate. But Schiff doesn't move on. Because in hearings like this, the first answer is rarely the final one. If any FBI agent testified that you had taken such actions, would they be incorrect? I'm only speaking to my actions. Again, distance. Not a direct rejection, not a confirmation. Just a narrowing of responsibility. And now the pattern begins. Schiff asks again, slightly reframed. You're saying no individual was disciplined or removed for political reasons tied to those investigations? Patel answers with a principle rather than a direct response. Any personnel decisions were based on failure to meet standards. It sounds firm, reasonable even, but it still doesn't engage the core of the question. Schiff adjusts. No one was removed because of the cases they were assigned to? No one was removed for case assignments alone. That single word alone becomes the focal point. Schiff isolates it instantly. You said alone. That implies there could be other factors combined with those assignments. Patel responds quickly. Absolutely not. But the introduction of that qualifier changes the dynamic. It introduces ambiguity where the question demanded clarity. Schiff removes the qualifier entirely. Let me ask it plainly. Did you remove or discipline any employee, in whole or in part, because of their involvement in investigations related to Donald Trump or January 6th? Now there's no room for interpretation, no narrowing language. Patel shifts again. FBI employees are only removed when they fail to uphold their duties. It's a statement of policy, not an answer to the specific scenario. You're not answering the question, Schiff says, still controlled. I don't have to answer it yes or no because you're framing it in a way that creates a narrative, Patel responds. And with that, the exchange changes. Up to this point, the tension has been procedural questions, clarifications, adjustments. Now it becomes strategic. Because Schiff recognizes something important, continuing in this loop won't produce a direct answer. So he resets. He returns to the original issue, the Epstein files. The shift is deliberate, because now the focus returns to Jeffrey Epstein and the statement that began the exchange. In 2024, you stated that the Black Book was under the direct control of the FBI director. He repeats it, word for word. Was that accurate? Patel responds in the same way. The materials were in the possession of the FBI. And now, as director, you have access to them? What has been referred to as the Black Book has been released. Again, the language changes. What has been referred to as not a confirmation, not a denial, a reframing. Schiff lets it sit. Then he narrows it further. You've reviewed the files. Based on that review, were there individuals to whom Epstein trafficked victims beyond himself? This question carries more weight than the previous ones, because now it's not about documents, it's about accountability. Patel answers carefully. There are no credible investigative leads that support prosecution of additional individuals. The wording is precise. It focuses on prosecutable evidence, not on associations or allegations. But Schiff pushes the contrast. There are victims who have testified that others were involved. Pals. And your position is that there are no individuals beyond Epstein himself? That is not what I said. But it's also not clearly refuted, and that ambiguity becomes the center of the exchange. Schiff introduces another element, a reference to statements connected to Ghislaine Maxwell. He cites remarks about a broader circle of individuals associated with Epstein. Then he asks a direct question. Who are those individuals? Patel does not provide names. Instead, he shifts to process again. The relevant transcripts have been made available. I don't have those details in front of me. The question remains unanswered. And at this point, the pattern is unmistakable. A claim is presented. A question is asked. The response avoids direct engagement. Schiff makes one final attempt to establish clarity. Who authorized the transfer of Maxwell to a different facility following that interview? The Bureau of Prisons, Patel replies. They acted independently? I'm not involved in those operational decisions. Each answer remains within bounds of plausibility. None directly address the underlying concern. And then, the tone shifts. What had been controlled becomes personal. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate, Patel says. The structure breaks. The exchange moves away from questions and answers into open confrontation. You're a disgrace, he continues. Schiff responds, but the dynamic has already changed. The focus is no longer on the initial issue. The conversation has moved into territory where resolution is no longer possible. And that moment, the break, is what most viewers remember. It's what gets clipped, shared, and replayed. But it isn't where the real tension was built. That happened earlier. In the repeated attempts to reconcile a past statement with a present position, in the gradual narrowing of language, in the shift from broad claims to specific qualifications. Because when you step back from the exchange, one question remains at the center. What changed? The original statement suggested direct control, immediate access, the ability to provide clarity. The current explanation limits that claim, reframing it as material already released, already known, already addressed. Those two positions don't align cleanly, and that gap is what drives the entire exchange. Not the volume, not the confrontation, but the difference between what was said and what is being said now. If you're following closely, that's the part worth focusing on. Because hearings like this aren't just about answers. They're about how those answers evolve under pressure. If you want more breakdowns like this, where the focus stays on the words, the structure, and what actually happens inside these exchanges, let me know what you want analyzed next. And if you've made it this far, consider subscribing. Because the most important moments in these hearings aren't always the loudest ones. They're the ones where the answers get smaller, while the questions stay the same.